Welcome back to Slightly Better Lighting. Hello, okay, podcast time, here we go. This episode was initially just gonna be about like the TikTok ban, and then Trump's inauguration happened and everything came out about the Southport attacker, so we have a lot to cover in today's video, okay? There we go. Now I don't look like I'm about to tell you a scary story. Alright. Welcome back to the podcast, welcome back to Playing in Politics. If you've never seen my face before, hello, my name's Anna, this is Playing in Politics, my politics and makeup podcast where I basically talk about politics and do my makeup at the same time. I don't tend to talk about the makeup as much, I do tend to kind of just stick to the politics, and if you're curious about what I'm using, I always link the products in the description if you're curious about that side of things. So, without any further ado, let's jump right in. I mean, yeah, this has been a crazy week. I've been uploading a lot of shorts recently about kind of some of the stuff that's been happening in preparation for talking about all this. As I say, it was just initially going to be talking about the TikTok ban and me celebrating, because if you've been here for a while and you know me, then you know that I hate TikTok and everything that it stands for, and very much for the ban. And it was really, really funny to see all the American creators that I follow, especially like on Instagram, crying at like their sort of mini funerals on their Instagram stories, grieving the death of TikTok. And it was just really, really funny. There were a lot of memes that were coming out. It was very, very memeable. As I say, that was just going to be what I was going to be talking about, and like why all this is really good and yay Trump and all these things. But as we will get to later on, first of all, that TikTok ban lasted 12 hours, but also everything else happened. I watched the Trump inauguration yesterday. As I'm filming this is Tuesday, and the inauguration was the 20th, which was Monday, which was yesterday. And wow, I mean, obviously the vibes were slightly different to Biden's inauguration and Trump's first inauguration because they were both outside and it was incredibly cold in Washington DC apparently, so they held it inside, and to be honest it was quite a cozy vibe. I will not lie. I watched GB News's coverage of the event, which, by the way, well done to GB News. I feel like they did a really good job in covering that. Poor Bev Turner was out in the cold trying to interview people, which I felt very sorry for her because she didn't really have a lot of makeup on, and she looked like she was not having a fun time in the cold. She looked like she was quite chilly. It was like, oh Bev, bless you. But yeah, overall it was really funny. In fact, I mean, we'll get to this a bit later on, but when Trump was doing his kind of speech to just his supporters, they had side by side like Biden's speech to his supporters as well, but they only had the audio one on Trump's, which was really funny, and he was telling all these like weird personal stories. Anyway, we'll get to that in a minute, but yeah, let's talk about Trump's inauguration first of all, because damn, that man knows how to make some statements. Really, I mean, it was quite funny as well. As I say, I did watch everything live on GB News, and just the angle, obviously Biden was sat behind him, and when Trump was making all of his like big statements, just Biden's face was honestly quite funny. He was quite clearly trying to hold back laughs in a way, almost grieving the loss of what he thought his country would be. I don't know, if you watched it you know, but like I might put like a screenshot up on the screen, but it was quite funny. It was quite funny. The inspiration for the makeup, by the way, is kind of this picture, but I'm gonna do it kind of green instead of purple, so we'll see how this goes. But yeah, as I say, Trump's speech, wow. As that man knows how to make some commitments and some statements. Do I think he's going to act on and achieve all of them? I mean, last time he was in office, he did an awful lot of things, didn't he? So I don't know. He might do, and for a lot of these things, I do hope that he does. There are a couple of things, obviously, that I don't agree with. If you've been here for a while, you can probably guess which ones I'm on about, but we will get to that. But yeah, he made a lot of statements and a lot of commitments, as I say, which it was impressive. He spoke his speech, like his first speech, just his inauguration speech, was about half an hour long. That man had like no prompts, no cards with him, no nothing. That man just yapped for half an hour, which, I mean, to be honest, it's Donald J. Trump. Of course he's gonna yap for half an hour. That's what he does best, is yap. he's like the chief of the yappers when it comes to presidents. Yeah, as I say, he did make a lot of commitments and a lot of things that he was gonna do, even from day one. And yeah, he has done quite a lot of things on day one. I'm sure we'll continue to cover the US as you know, as he continues to be in office and the things he's gonna do. But just to list off a couple of things that I wrote down whilst I was watching, so obviously I did make notes for this video, and I mean I didn't write down all of them. As I said, the man yapped for half an hour and it was basically just a bullet pointed list of I'm gonna do this, 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 this. And it was very difficult to keep up with at times, but the things that I did write down, the famous quote of drill baby drill. Oh, when he said that I was like, he's back. He's back. The goat is back in office. That was brilliant. But yeah, the whole thing about making America a manufacturing nation again was actually quite empowering, and I'm sure there's a lot of people who after watching his speech will be looking at the UK going, we should, why aren't we why aren't we following suit? We're meant to be, I know we're like a lot smaller than America, but we're meant to be kind of twins in a way. I mean obviously not literally because they kicked us out twice, you know, hurl your tea in the sea, whatever the fuck. If you're a fan of the Hamilton musical, you'll know the line. But anyway, yeah, it was really interesting, all these commitments about like he's gonna make all these cars and like the energy that he, obviously it's always been a thing with America that they love their oil, and his speech and his commitment was like, we're no exception to that, you know. It was a big thing he was saying, was like, yeah, we have a lot of oil and we're gonna use it, or oil and gas, we're gonna sell it, or like we're gonna export it across the world, you know, we're gonna make sure that America's the country of producing all this energy, and you know, we're gonna make sure that we're making the most of that. Which, I mean, even coming from someone who's a vegan, but I mean I'm a vegan for the animals, so I do admit that, you know, when it comes to climate change and things, you know, at least the UK doesn't contribute that much. I mean the US contributes a little bit more, and I think, I mean I'm gonna have to confirm this because I think I just saw it on Twitter for some random user. I'm gonna have to do this, but one of his first day in office things that he's done is come out of the Paris Climate Agreement, which obviously is not going to be popular with a lot of Americans and just a lot of people in general. I mean, I know that Trump was always against the Paris Climate Agreement. I think, I mean, if memory serves, he actually came out of it last time he was in the White House, and I think Biden got them to rejoin it. I'm gonna have to fact check myself on that. Yeah, as I say, it was really interesting to hear him just be so determined about that. And like with the cars thing, he was like, yeah, America's gonna be making cars again at a rate that no one's ever seen before, and he was really he was really hammering it home, which, as I say, was good to see, because it has been a bit of like a lackluster 4 years when it comes to the Biden administration, as we all know, I'm sure, in terms of seeing progress and actually, you know, making America great and proving that America, you know, is this great country, because America has kind of lost what America stands for the last few years, especially under the Biden administration. So it will be interesting to see like if this greatness does actually come to fruition, and I have no doubts that Trump can do it, you know, but it will just be interesting to see how it actually all rolls out. Another thing he talked about was sending humans to Mars. Now obviously we know his partnership with Elon Musk is quite a big thing and quite impressive and quite important, and to see him, as I say, specifically say, you know, we are going to be the first people to send people to Mars. Obviously it was the US who were kind of the first people to send people to the moon, so now he's trying to beat us to the Mars as well. Do I think that's gonna happen? I mean, considering the past few launches, at least I've seen on the news, that Elon's tried to do with SpaceX, it's not gone very well. I think that might be a little bit ambitious. Personally, Elon, you know I love you, we'll get to you in a minute, but it is interesting to have that ambition. Considering, as I say, that Elon's recent launches have not exactly gone to plan. But yeah, just the overall vibe, I mean, whether or not you like Trump, okay, and listen, if you told me in 2020 that I was gonna be hailing Trump's return, I would have like looked at you really funny and be like, what's changed? What's happened? Has he changed? Did Biden not do very well? What's happening? Because in 2020, I was all for Biden. I was like, yeah, we need change. Trump's been too radical. It was mainly because of like gun violence, or like the gun laws and things, that I really wanted Biden to win, because obviously he was very popular with the left, and he was very popular just with Americans in general. Whatever you want to say about the election, I mean, he even said in his speech to his supporters, he still thinks that election was rigged, and hey, I don't think it was. ice. I don't think it was. I think that's just him still being bitter 4 years on, which, you know, fair enough, but Trump's gonna be Trump, isn't it? But yeah, it was interesting to see him actually still say that, which was just like, move on, bro, move on, move on. I think my point was like, even though that election, he says it was rigged, but it I think a lot of people were really done with Trump and really wanted to see change. It was similar to like what we saw with the general election in the UK last summer, because a lot of people didn't want Starmer, but we still ended up with him. And as I say, first past the post really failed the Conservatives, really, because a lot of people were voting for reform, and that meant that a lot of Conservatives lost their seats. I mean, I did a whole episode of that at the time. Well, they don't really have the same system in the US, do they? Yeah, to see that change, but then to see people change their minds so quickly as well. To be fair, looking back, because I know that people back in 2020 didn't even necessarily want, like, they didn't think that Biden was perfect. They just agreed with that side of politics, because obviously they do kind of have like a two-party system over there. It's not the case where you can just, I mean, you can vote for independent candidates, but it doesn't work the same way as it does over here. So you do kind of have to pick one side in a way. But so many people even afterwards were coming out and saying like, yeah, no, we don't really like the way that he's doing things. We think that obviously he's a bit senile and it just is a bit weak and a bit fragile. And I mean, I made quite like a grim prediction in my 2025 predictions video, but I think now he can go off to a nursing home and he can live the rest of his days in peace, knowing he served his country in some form. That's to wish him the best. I think that's what they need to do. But anyway, moving on to kind of the next point. Anyway, Trump's kind of speech, there was a theme throughout his speech talking a lot about the future of America and the future of the people of America, which I thought was also incredibly empowering. And as I say, it's just not something we're seeing in the UK, and I feel like it needs to be an energy that we bring over, and I feel like he can help us with that. But I really want to see him help us with that, because as I say, we do need it, like, quite desperately with the state of this country, but also with the state that Biden left America in. I think that it's an energy that they need as well. They just don't really realise it yet. And it'll be interesting to see just kind of how the vibe changes over the next 4 years, whether people will warm to Trump or whether he will still remain the enemy. I mean, obviously he's still going to be quite divisive, but whether he's going to be maybe as divisive as he is now, I don't know. When we'll see, you know, the prices of energy going down and all these things, because obviously that's inevitable with Conservative politics. That's just what happens, you know, things go down because of the low taxes mentality. So he might become a little bit more popular because of that, even if it's through gritted teeth. The other theme of his speech was security, and we all know, I mean, from 2016 and his campaign, you know, build the wall of Mexico. And I mean, speaking of Mexico, you know, he's obviously renamed the Gulf of the Gulf of Mexico the Gulf of America. That was another day one commitment that I think he's done today. Obviously with the wall, he has also really been passionate about the national security of America, and this speech was absolutely no exception. He said that drug cartels are going to be considered foreign terrorists, which was really interesting for America, because they do have, I mean, obviously we have an illegal migrant issue in this country, but over there, obviously because it's a much bigger country, they have it in the millions. I mean, obviously we have it in the thousands, they have it in the millions, which is obviously really concerning. I mean, obviously, yeah, they are a bigger country, but to have that vast amount, I mean, if we were having that in this country, I mean, we just absolutely couldn't handle it. We were already not really handling it, but we physically could not handle it if that was the case, you know what I mean? So they are looking in a way, they've got the space, I guess, but it is a big problem because they are experiencing a lot of crime like we are in this country. But they also have a massive drug problem, depends on like the city or the state or whatever, but a lot of them are coming from the border. And it was quite funny that he quite passionately named the illegal migrants aliens. I found that hilarious. I love that. I don't know if I feel like he has been doing that for a while now, but it was just funny to hear him say that, like, all the illegal aliens from the border, we're gonna stop all the aliens. And it was just like, he's back again, he's back, he's absolutely back. He did thank Hispanic and African American community for his votes. Now obviously we know from the voting percentages that yeah, a lot of those minorities did help him, which a lot of the lefty people did not like from those communities. Obviously they were like, you betrayed our community. They were like, no, not really, they just went with what they wanted to do, which, you know, is how democracy works. But yeah, that was really funny. But overall it was a really robust speech, and as I say, it will be very, very interesting to see exactly what happens and how everything goes down over the next 4 years, even the next, you know, few weeks. It was also interesting that he was talking about, you know, America being the country of not only ending wars, but like not starting wars as well. Like it will be the next 4 years of wars that we didn't start kind of thing, which was really interesting. And obviously we've had the hostage deal between Israel and Gaza last week as well, which I didn't really fully understand why Israel was being so angry about it and why Netanyahu was getting those resignations. But then I learned 90 terrorist hostages had to be released from Israel for 3 hostages in Gaza. That's ridiculous. That's crazy. I mean, I know a lot of people are on the fence. I mean, I think I've talked about this before on my channel, but when it comes to that conflict, I really have swayed in Israel's favour, but only because Hamas started it. Obviously, Israel has done some horrific things as well, and we don't celebrate those in any way, shape or form, but that is pathetic. I mean, really? That's crazy. Obviously, it was a little bit unrealistic that Israel were going to completely wipe out Hamas. I mean, they've done it to enough of an extent now, I think, that where they can just kind of ease off a little bit and just focus on getting the hostages back. And it is great that we have got those 3 back, but to have to have given over 90 is crazy, man. It's insane, considering the ones that they're detaining are terrorists, and yet the ones in Gaza are innocent people. Like, one was a Brit. Like, it's crazy, it's insane. But yeah, that's kind of another topic, but it was really interesting, because I think I've spoken on this channel before, and if you know me personally, you know I talk about this as well, is that one thing Trump knows how to do is to calm down the crazies in other countries. People like North Korea, and especially Putin and Russia. I think that his administration is going to mean the end to the Ukraine war. I think I talked about that in my predictions video for the year, and although I don't think it's necessarily going to be clean, a little bit like what happened with Israel-Palestine, but I think it is definitely going to happen, and he definitely kind of made that commitment in his speech. But yeah, I feel like that was the overall themes, I think, for his inauguration speech. And then obviously it went to his supporters, a little like gathering he had going on, which, as I say, was really funny when GB News was having it side by side with Biden's, and you couldn't hear Biden's, you could just see him talk. But Trump was waffling away, which was really quite funny. And yeah, no, he did waffle. He did absolutely waffle, and I think, I don't know, it was just a friendly vibe is probably what I would say, because obviously he was surrounded by his supporters. But yeah, he did just waffle on about all sorts of things, but it was kind of the same sort of vibe, just with a few little personal stories like put in there. Yeah, it was just really interesting. But yeah, overall I think it was a really good welcome back moment for him, and it really felt good. Obviously we had quite a few people in the audience, like Mark Zuckerberg, who we all know recently has come out and exposed a lot of things that the Biden administration were getting him to do in terms of Facebook, things to do with like the COVID vaccine, which we all kind of knew at the time, but now we actually have the confirmation of what was going on in terms of the censorship, which was really cool. To see him in the audience with his wife, I think, was really cool. Same with like a few other people. Michelle Obama didn't turn up. Barack Obama was there, but Michelle didn't turn up, which I thought was quite funny. It was like, okay, Michelle, you're bitter, we get it. That makes sense. Obviously they're not from the same side at all. And I suppose, like, she's been to one inauguration, why should she go to another one? Obviously she had to be there for Trump's first inauguration because he was handed over from Barack Obama. So I suppose it's like, I've already seen this guy come in once, I don't need to be there again. hubby, you go, it's fine. And it was interesting as well because I was watching it on TV News, as I've said, and they were saying that Barack Obama had like a swagger to him as he walked in, and he did look really confident. I mean, every time he walks in a room, even the TV News presenter said he has always looked really presidential, which was really nice to see. I mean, I'm a Barack Obama fan. I'm not gonna lie. Just him as a person, not necessarily everything he did while he was in office, but as a person, he's always seemed like a great guy. By the way, moving on to my mascara, whoever said, I'm gonna try this again, this is the second time I've tried this, and I know you have to give mascaras a bit of a space to work because new mascara straight out the tube are just not always the best, but the Lash Xtndr, everyone raves about it. I immediately just see my lashes droop. Like, I think it's because it's new and it's still like wet and it hasn't like quite dried down yet, so the formula's not quite there, but I don't know, I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan so far. I'm still looking at my Sky High and like, you know, but trying to save the pennies, you know, and try a different formula. But anyway, so yeah, that was the vibes from Trump's inauguration. An interesting meme though, we've gone to Elon, obviously Elon Musk, who is gonna be on Trump's team, and obviously as we've mentioned, Trump's like, America's gonna send people to Mars and it's all gonna be great, and he was very optimistic about that. And obviously Elon has been just a fantastic person. I mean, I think we've talked about him on the podcast before. If you're on this side of politics, you're on the side of the internet, like, I'm sure you're an Elon Musk fan. We all kind of praise Elon recently for the kind of stuff that he's done with X. I mean, I still like to call it Twitter. I still die with that, to be fair. Just also from like a branding perspective, I think branding was so much nicer than X is. I think X is like too corporate and like it's giving SpaceX. Like, this guy's got an obsession with the letter X. Like, one of his kids is named like X something. Like, what's his obsession with X anyway? But yeah, he is now on Trump's team. He's also recently publicly come out and supported Tommy Robinson according to Tommy's team, which is obviously brilliant to see, and he has just been a bastion of free speech and a bastion of supporting the good guys. Like, he is one of the good guys, you know, even though people have been vastly evacuating Twitter over to Blue Sky, where whoever runs that, I don't know, it's probably China. But yeah, despite that, it's like, well, if you're not here for the debate and you don't want to, if you want to continue to live in your echo chamber, then we're not going to miss you, you know. To be fair, this mascara as well is actually working better now that I'm not wiggling it around a lot, which is normally what I do, because that's how you're meant to apply mascara, but just brushing it through my lashes is actually helping. Nobody's here for the mascara review. But talking about the memes anyway, because that's why I brought him up. So everyone is making this thing now, because when he was making his speech, everyone's saying at the end of his speech that he did like a Nazi salute. So some people are saying it was a Nazi salute, some people it was saying it was a Roman salute. You know what I think he was doing? I think he was dabbing. Bring back dabbing 2025. Let's make that a hashtag on X, shall we? It's honestly ridiculous. I mean, he just stuck his arm out in a cool way. As I said, I think he was just trying to dab or like do like the Nike tick with his arm. I don't know. But yeah, everyone's having a meltdown because they were like, did he just do a Nazi salute? What the heck's going on? It's like, no, guys. Why would he do that? Why would he do it? It just doesn't make any sense. And the internet's gonna be the internet, isn't it? And I just, yeah, that was really funny. But I think their collaboration is gonna be really, really interesting to see over the next 4 years. I mean, even just over the next kind of 12 months even. We'll see how that goes, because as I say, Elon's been absolutely incredible. I've been just an incredible figure for all the freedom-loving people of the world. So yeah, that's kind of all I wanted to talk about in terms of Trump and everything else. We're gonna get to the TikTok ban in a minute, but I do want to talk about Southport. Now, I'm gonna stop doing the makeup for a little bit because this is more of a serious topic. It's crazy. Now, I want to apologise, first of all, because I'm pretty sure when I made my video back in the summer, when all this stuff kind of first started coming out, I'm pretty sure I went with the media narrative that this guy was a Christian, that this guy was not an Islamist, he was not in any way an extremist, this was probably a mental health case or something, but I was definitely go with the mainstream narrative. And I want to apologise because I doubted anybody who was saying that it was an extremist act or it was something to do with Islamism. I should have seen the signs. I mean, I'm pretty sure there was something in the back of my head that was telling me maybe it was, but I just didn't want to believe it at the time. Obviously, everything that we know now, if you don't already know, this guy liked violence. This teenager had an affiliation affiliation with violence. He had been sent to mental health services at his 6th form. He'd been sent to social services. He'd been referred to these services because he had an affiliation with violence. And a week before the Southport attack, his dad had reportedly stopped him getting into a taxi, like pleaded with the taxi driver not to drive him to his old high school because we don't exactly know how much the dad knew. Presumably the dad knew that he was interested in violence and maybe was planning something, but we don't know how much exactly he knew. We also knew that he had an affiliation, like he had an interest in the Rwandan massacre, and obviously we know this guy was of that descent, like his parents were of that descent. So this honestly was the biggest cover-up because the journalists knew, Keir Starmer knew in his statement that he made. I mean, to no one's surprise, he sided with the journalists saying, hey, the journalists knew. Obviously I knew and the journalists knew, but because the journalists knew, they couldn't say anything, so I couldn't say anything either because it would have prejudiced the case. Even Nigel Farage has come out and said, I mean, I'm pretty sure at the time he was saying like there is something more to this. Obviously we can't necessarily speculate, but there definitely is something more to this. I don't think he was hiding it at all, but he has come out and said, you know, I knew about this, but I didn't want to prejudice the case. But he was saying it in a more honest way that makes sense, whereas Keir Starmer's just doubling down and being Keir Starmer. So it has been very interesting, but it has been infuriating that this was such a massive cover-up and that the media were portraying him as, well, he's just like this choir boy from Wales, like he's a good Christian choir boy. And obviously he was in like that snippet of a BBC advert. He was doing like a Doctor Who bit for a BBC advert a few years ago. But yeah, this is just, it has been disgusting. Obviously he has pleaded guilty, which is great for the parents of the victims and anyone who was there at the time. Obviously he has pleaded guilty to wanting to stab 8 people and 2 adults, so in a way that is good because it means they don't have to go through a trial. It just goes straight to sentencing, which obviously saves time and is great, as I say, for the parents of the victims and everyone else who was involved. But it just goes to show to go with your intuition, especially with everything that's going on, and the more and more these kind of things are happening, it is really, really important that we, as I say, keep talking about ideologies that seem to be seeping further and further into our society and even getting to young people, despite not being of kind of the more common descent. Obviously we know he was in possession of an Al-Qaeda manual, and even though, because my parents, my dad especially, has this affiliation of constantly watching the BBC news, and the BBC, when this was all coming out, was still saying he wasn't an Islamist, and it's like, guys, come on, he was literally in the possession, like the way they phrased it, it was he was in possession of this manual, like something that would be of use to a terrorist. This guy was a terrorist. That attack, in my opinion, is considered an act of terrorism, and the fact that the media are trying to pretend like it wasn't is ridiculous to me, because it's there in plain sight, and it's there, you know, in cold blood, in the cold blood that those innocent girls died in, is just it's beyond belief. But in a way it's not, because this kind of thing just keeps happening, and I hope that he gets life, and I hope that life means, obviously we know in this country with the justice system, life doesn't mean life, which is really, really frustrating, but I hope that he gets the harshest sentence possible, because this is disgusting and we need to stamp out this kind of thing. And when it comes to mainstream media narratives, it's another example of do not trust the mainstream media, because they do cover up, and they have done it over and over again. They did it with the rape gangs and the grooming gangs that we talked about in the last video, in the last podcast episode, and they're doing it again with this, and they have done with this, and unfortunately they are going to do it again. So the more that we keep speaking up about these ideologies, and as I say, the way that it's infecting our society, the better we can help to stamp it out, hopefully, and the more that we can remain speaking the truth and striving for the truth and fighting for the truth. So yeah, that's that's kind of what I wanted to say on that point. Obviously, I'm sure you guys have opinions as well. Feel free to leave them in the comments, even just when it comes to all the things we've talked about today, but especially when it comes to that. So, bit of a lighter note, back to the makeup. The last point I wanted to talk about is the TikTok ban. Everyone survived the 12-hour TikTok ban, did we not? Those who live in America, obviously I'm in the UK, was not affected. I wish that I was, because if you've been here for a while, as I've said in this episode before, I am pro TikTok ban. It was fun in 2020. Listen, in 2020 when we had nothing else to do and everyone was doing kind of the TikTok dances and like just doing all the fun stuff, that was fun. That was fun when we kept it cute and we kept it fun, and then we stopped doing that and it became a lefty echo chamber, and a lot of the reason why we have the kind of issues when it comes to conversations around gender and the LGBTQ+ community, that started on TikTok. A lot of the misandry as well when it comes to extreme sides of the feminist movement. I mean, you know, I'm all for female empowerment, but I also love men, and I think that men deserve a platform as well as women. We all just need to strive for like true equality, but unfortunately TikTok is a brain rot platform now and nothing more, and it's just, even though everyone was crying about we're losing our free speech, they're impeaching on our free speech, go to another platform, go to your Blue Sky, go to your Instagram, whatever you want to do, because as I said when I first mentioned this in this podcast episode, a lot of people were crying about this on Instagram. Instagram is a perfectly good place. You know, no one is trying to impeach your free speech. This was not about free speech. This was not about free speech, okay? This was about protecting people's data, protecting people, protecting nations from the Chinese Communist Party, from the CCP, from China. This was about China. This was not about you, Louise. I don't know. Okay, this was about China. This was not about you, you know, and I feel so passionately about this, and I have done for ages. I think I've talked about this before, but a couple of years ago, I saw Tom Tugendhat talk at a dinner in Bolton, and at the time he was security minister, at least I think he still was, and he got TikTok banned on MPs' phones in the UK because he believed that there was a risk to their security, and I championed that. I just flung pieces of my broken highlighter everywhere because this highlighter is broken. Give me 1 second. If you've been on my channel for a while now, you'll know that I am a big fan of Tom Tugendhat. Would have voted for him in the Tory leadership election if he'd got to that stage. I have like a Tom Tugendhat t-shirt from party conference, from Tory party conference. I love that man. I think he's great, and that support for him started at that dinner. As soon as he said that he was campaigning against that and started talking about, you know, the dangers of TikTok and all this stuff, that is, as I say, when my support for him started, because I have felt this way for a while now that, yeah, TikTok's not safe. TikTok is not safe. TikTok is not a place that's, I mean, it can be fun, but it does have a really, really dark side, and I've been all for it being banned. I love Instagram. I love social media. I'm literally talking to you on YouTube right now, and I love my Instagram account as well, and I love my main channel, and I love X, and well, my main kind of social media platform love is Instagram. And as I say, if people want that kind of same vibe, go over to Instagram. Don't make Instagram TikTok, please don't, in terms of vibe, please, no. But, I mean, in terms of like the reach and the capabilities to grow, absolutely. I mean, I do champion that. I mean, I know that growing on TikTok has been quite easy for people, and if we were to bring that over to Instagram, that would be fantastic. But in terms of, as I say, the real threat behind it, which was the fact that it is run by China, it is run by the Chinese Communist Party, and anything that's run by them is just not safe. Absolutely not safe. You know, I've said for a while in my personal life and on here that China are not our friends. China are not our friends. And I mean, I talk a lot on my main channel about me being against kind of fast fashion, and we have things like Shein and Temu, who, guess what, are all run by China. They're just
out to destroy everything in their path, including their own citizens. Do you see how they treat Chinese people? Really? Do we not remember in 2020 about like the Hong Kong crisis and we were trying to go over and save them? Do we not remember that? Because I remember that. You know, we have had signs for so long, but people are still trying to claim that it's, you know, Trump trying to attack their free speech, which is not the case at all. I mean, what's ironic as well is obviously because it only lasted for like 12 hours and then Trump obviously brought it back, like the little pop-up that was coming up on people's screens like, we want to thank President Trump for working with us, and everyone was like, yay, Trump. Like, apparently there was a side of the internet that was praising Trump for doing this, who weren't necessarily supporting Trump beforehand, and it's been interesting as well. I've heard, I think it was Adam McIntyre talking about this, who's like a drama commentary channel that I watch quite a lot, and he made a video talking about the TikTok ban, even though it didn't affect him. But it was interesting to hear him talk about, basically he thinks that this whole thing is Trump propaganda to try and get the younger voters to vote for him, which was interesting, like to support him, not necessarily vote for him because obviously they just had an election, but like to get the younger audiences behind him, which was interesting. I mean, to be honest, I don't even know if I fully agree with that, because if that was the case, it would have been better to do that like around the election, but obviously he didn't have the power to do that at the time, and the Biden administration kind of palmed that responsibility off onto Trump's team in terms of TikTok. So I don't know what's going on there, but it was an interesting take. Listen, as much as I don't agree with Adam McIntyre's political stances and anything to do with the left in terms of like their political stances, as much as I don't do that on the whole, when it came to that I was like, that is an interesting take. That is a very interesting take. But apparently one of his day one things that Trump's done is extended that TikTok ban by 75 days, presumably to try and get some sort of deal with China or deal with whoever, you know, is dealing with that. But as I've said, it's pure brain rot. It is not like 2020 anymore, and it's banned on MPs' phones for a reason. Tom Tugendhat and people like that, and politicians who deal with TikTok on like a political basis, when it comes to that, you know, it does have to be listened to and taken quite seriously, and we should be taking it more seriously as citizens as well. But personally, you know, I think that it should be banned in the UK as well. I don't think we need it. I think we have Instagram, we have YouTube, we do not need TikTok. We do not need TikTok. And hey, people can find platforms over on YouTube and over on Instagram. Like when Vine died and everyone went to YouTube, we're gonna see the same thing. And it worked. It worked, okay? So stop crying about it. I'm gonna go choose a lip colour actually, because I realised I hadn't actually done that, so I'll be right back. I'm saying F it and we'll go with a red lip, so I hope this goes well. I think that actually went really well. That looks really pretty. I mean, I'm gonna just like say one more point before, like, whilst I'm letting this dry, and then we'll conclude. But I forgot to say, when it came to Trump's speech as well, I did want to end on this as well, is that, as I say, the only thing I want to say about Trump's speech that I didn't agree with was when he started going on about the whole America's policy that there are only two genders, male and female, and we want to like stamp out the gender conversation about like trying to inject it into everything. As much as I did agree with when he was saying about America will be a nation that's colorblind, that will not discriminate against people's skin color, and can I just say that like preacher, that black guy preacher was feeling the MAGA energy, the one who was like, freedom to the hills, and these hills in Pennsylvania, and this thing in this state, and freedom to the, that guy was absolutely brilliant. Whatever he was on, I want 5,000 of them, and that's coming from a Christian. But yeah, he was brilliant. But yeah, when it came to the two genders policy thing, if you've been on my channel before, you know, if anything, the only kind of leftist policy I do agree with is being compassionate towards the LGBTQ+ community, and that's only because I really want to get the point across that those people who just want to be who they want to be, fit in, yes, live their lives loudly and not have to conceal any part of who they are, and be able to live just like everybody else and be individual and celebrate that. Absolutely. I do still think we need pride parades because of that reason, and because of things like this, you know, the whole two genders thing that Trump said, because that is going to annoy people, and for the right reasons in my opinion, because as much as he was saying like we shouldn't be injecting the gender conversation and things like that into everything, unfortunately by saying there are only two genders and that's America's policy, he's doing just that. Like it's very hypocritical when people say that, because by ruling out like non-binary people and transgender people, like, I mean, obviously transgender people are switching from one to the other kind of thing, but like to erase not non-binary people completely is just idiotic, and it creates a conflict that doesn't need to be there. Just let people live, for the love of God. Stop shouting about it, please. Like, again, it's hypocritical to say you don't want to inject it into everything, but then injecting it into everything by trying to make it like a black and white thing is just silly. So that was the only point I didn't agree with, but on the whole, very robust speech, as I've said, you know, when I was talking about it in depth. It's a very big welcome back, Donny T, and to Elon Musk and everyone else on his team. And as I say, I'm very much looking forward to the Trump administration 2.0. Drill, baby, drill, and get the foreign aliens out. That's honestly, that was still the highlight for me. I giggled, I laughed, I smiled, I felt a deep sense of pride for America, even though that I'm a Northern English lass. And as I've said, you know, I really wish that we had that energy over in the UK, because we really, really need it. It is really that robust togetherness that we really need over here, that America has just got and is going to keep on developing now that Trump's back again. I just really hope that he can do all the good that he said he's going to do, and that it does end up being a success and not further dividing the country. So with that said, I hope you guys enjoyed this podcast episode. Leave any thoughts that you have in the comments. I would love to hear them, as always. Please subscribe so you don't miss out on my shorts, because I do often kind of do little updates as things happen just throughout the week, throughout the day. And obviously stay tuned for my full length podcast episodes, where we talk about things in depth and we just have a fun old discussion over here. You know, my whole point of this podcast is to make politics less of a heavy thing where we can, obviously. I often like to say it's like barely Saturday without the murder, although we have had a lot of that recently, so I haven't really been able to say that confidently. As I say, if you're interested in the makeup, all the products will be listed in the description. And yeah, I will see you guys in the next one. Stay safe, keep fighting for the truth, and I will see you guys in the next one. Stay sane, whatever you're gonna do.